Welcome back, DIY Squad. It's time for another DIY project. You can see that there is a plain white theme here, especially if you've seen my previous videos. We did put in upgraded appliances, but this kitchen still feels cold, plain, and kind of unwelcoming. So we are going to start this kitchen upgrade by attacking the biggest eyesore in this space, the island. Now we can just slap a coat of paint on it and call it a day, but that's not what we do around here. So we are going to take this up a notch by building our own decorative paneling to go on the face of this island. Alright, jumping right into it. I start by removing the baseboards around the island because we will not need these anymore. Although this will all be covered up, I habitually cut the caulking on all my baseboards before tearing them off. This not only gives you a good clean tear from the wall, but it prevents pulling paint and the drywall paper up from the wall as well. To add a little life to this boring wall, we are going to build paneling for it. I drew out a sketch of what I want to do and figured out all my measurements. We start by ripping down 3/4 inch MDF plywood into 4-inch strips. This will be the width of all the planks going on this wall. I ripped them down slightly bigger than 4 inches because I don't trust these aluminum guides to not flex while I'm doing these long cuts. I then moved to the table saw to rip them down to exactly 4 inches wide. I then give all my planks an 1/8 inch roundover with my router. This way you'll be able to see each individual plank after we attach them to the island. Of course, a router table would be easier to use here, but tools are expensive and I'm slowly building out my shop as much and as fast as I can. From here I just begin by building out the frame. My corners are going to be mitered or cut at a 45-degree angle.
Now that we've really got this cut and somewhat dry assembled, you can see how it's starting to come along a little bit. We've really just got the framing done. So what we've done is we've got the rails, the top, the bottom, all that fun stuff done. We just haven't done the inside. I want to make sure that these are connected, is I'm going to do pocket holes in the back to connect it to the top rail. I just got not the cheapest one, but the next one up. Really, you just clamp this piece on here and it'll do your pocket holes perfectly. Now make sure you read the instructions so that you can set your depths properly, or else you're going to end up throwing the screw through the other side of the face.
Although this MDF is pretty smooth, I go over it real quick to sand out any imperfections. Once I install this, I do not want to sand this inside. You will hate yourself later if you do. Then I take this inside piece by piece to assemble it, where there's heat. I then glue all of my joints and attach them with the pocket screws. Then cover it with construction adhesive, lift it into place, and secure it with some finish nails. If you're curious about the 2 holes in the island wall, well, I'm running wire for some under cabinet lighting that you will see me install in a future video. So if you subscribe down below, you'll be notified on all future projects when I release them, and it also helps support the channel so I can keep bringing you these videos.
Good morning. So today we are going through to finish up the front of the kitchen island, and we're going to start cutting in these inside pieces. I want to pay attention to where I end up cutting these rails because there's a certain flow. So as you can see, as this line comes across, it matches up perfectly with that line that goes up. I can't really play around a whole lot and just say, oh, it's cool, we'll just throw it where it lands. There's a specific pattern and design that this has to follow. I ended up cutting out these pieces of bead board that was from a previous project in a previous video. And then I'm just going to use this top left corner as my first guide and do my first 45 and then build off of that. That way it is exactly like this, where I'm right here on this top 45, how it just comes perfectly across, and then everything just builds off of that.
Once I have all the internal pieces cut, I then move indoors to continue the install. I place these 1/8" boards on the back first, then install my pieces over top. I use construction adhesive on all layers and shoot in some finish nails to hold everything. I could install these without the 1/8" board, but this is why I added it. The frame of this is 3/4 of an inch thick, and the internal boards are 1/2 inch thick. That leaves me a 1/4 inch reveal, and I only want an 1/8 inch reveal. By adding that board, it brings everything forward, making my reveal exactly how I wanted it. For those of you not in the US using the metric system, the numbers probably won't make sense. Sorry, we're stubborn and sticking to this complicated fraction system. Once it's all installed, I just putty up the holes and caulk all the edges to give it all a seamless look. Then the one thing I hate the most, painting. For this MDF, a decent primer will do just fine. The paint I'm putting on here is meant for cabinets. This is not a latex paint you put on walls. This paint is still water-based, but it dries hard, so you don't have to be gentle with your cabinets. Now for the actual cabinets on the other side, I do not recommend just painting over them. How do I know this? Well...
Alright, so as you can see, it looks a little bit different. The cupboards look awful. What had happened is I took the advice of the guy that just works at the local paint shop that just said, hey, this paint's strong enough that you're not going to need to apply any type of primer, rough it up, or any of that kind of stuff if these cabinets are new. They're only about 6 months old. When I told him that, he's like, oh yeah, they're just fine. You can slap this paint on there, it'll dry hard, it'll be good to go. So that's what we did. We had a big family party coming on in a week that we were going to be hosting, so I wanted to get this done. We put the paint on there. It looked great. But if you were to just bump it, scratch it, rub it, it would come right off and you'd see the white right underneath it. So we made the decision to, as soon as the party was over and everybody was gone, to go ahead and scrape all this stuff back off. Don't cut corners like I did, especially when it comes to painting these cabinets, because I've now spent an entire day just scraping the stuff off, more time sanding it down, and then I'm going to have to go through a couple days of the paint process all over again.
So after my up, I scraped all the new paint off the cabinets, then sanded off the white paint down to the wood. Once they are all sanded and cleaned up, we go through the same steps. Prime, wait for it to dry. Paint, wait for it to dry. Second coat, wait for it to dry. See why I hate painting? I do have some great tips for you though that I learned through this process. For instance, do not use cheap brushes or rollers for this. Cabinets get a lot of attention, and imperfections from cheap brushes will be noticeable. Also, after your first prime, go over it with a fine grit sandpaper to take off any bubbles or bumps from the primer getting into the wood pores. This will also help give you a glass smooth surface. And finally, do not use a cheap paint. A good quality paint has a self-leveling quality that will help remove brush marks. Why should you believe me on these tips? Because I'm doing this job twice. From there, I just reassemble all my drawers and doors. When I was painting, I did pull off the molding to ensure I didn't have funky paint lines. So to reattach them, I just used some trim nails. Thank you for watching as I transform this boring kitchen. Make sure if you haven't already, you like and subscribe down below. It's completely free to you and it keeps me working on new videos for you guys. On my next video, I will show you how to install a ceramic backsplash to bring more life to this kitchen. So stay tuned as more is coming your way.